Less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Free Georgia Podcast. My name is Jake Green. Thank y'all so much for tuning in today. We have a very special episode. It's all about Defend the Guard. We're going to get into that in just a second. Before we do, if you have any questions about the Libertarian Party, it is voting season right now. It's election season. The vote is tomorrow. When this comes out, the election will be the next day. So if you have any questions about what candidates Libertarians support, especially here in Georgia, go to lpgeorgia.com to learn more. You can get all sorts of good information there. You can get on our newsletter. You can register to vote through our website. There's just a wealth of information that you can get from lpgeorgia.com. And if you are listening to this outside of Georgia, you can go to lp.org and then find your state affiliate through there. So, all right. Sorry. My throat is a little clogged this morning. Today, like I said, we have an entire episode about Defend the Guard, and we're going to get into it real quick. So this is Marc Douglas and Gretchen Brocard, who are part of the Defend the Guard initiative. And let's get right to it. All right, y'all. Joining me today are Marc Douglas and Gretchen Brocard. How are y'all doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us. How are you?
Doing good. Gretchen, you're the one who wanted us to set up this podcast, who reached out to me to begin with. What was it that was so important to you? Or why is Defend the Guard so important to you?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Defend the Guard is a bill here in Georgia that was introduced last legislative session. We didn't make it as far as we wanted to, but we have an incredible sponsor here in Georgia who's willing to reintroduce it next session. And we feel like we need to really garner some support. We really need to educate everyone in Georgia, really everywhere in every state, but really everyone in Georgia, to spread the word about this bill. So I thought coming on this podcast and having the opportunity and platform to talk about it would be a good way to educate, spread the word, and get some support going into the next legislative session. So thank you for having us on to talk about it.
Heck yeah. And Marc, where do you fall within the campaign to get people aware of Defend the Guard?
I do whatever Gretchen says. She's our leader.
That's fair. I totally get that. Same question to you. Like, what made you want to get involved to begin with? Because this is not, there are many things within the Libertarian Party, many issues that that each person takes as their own issue. What made you choose this one?
Yeah, so this one is kind of important to me. First of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. I want to start by shouting out to Gretchen, who has been incredibly leading this charge on the legislation. With people like her being dedicated, I'm confident that this is going to get pushed through soon. I've spent over 20 years in the military, 6 of which was active duty, over 15 in the Guard now. Throughout the years, I've been deployed multiple times, witnessing firsthand the sacrifices of our service members that they make. I'm also a father of 4, with one of my kids now draft eligible age. And like many parents, I'm increasingly concerned about the path that we're on. So our National Guard motto is always ready, always there, because the Guard serves a dual mission, supporting our nation abroad while also responding to crises at home. But deploying our Guard members overseas, especially in endless undeclared wars, puts our communities at risk. We saw these consequences in Tennessee just recently with Hurricane Helene. After the recent hurricane, when critical Guard resources were needed at home, but they were deployed overseas to Kuwait. The devastation that we've seen is a direct result of this overreach, leaving our states more vulnerable to emergencies. This isn't just about the Constitution. It's about protecting our sons and daughters. The Defend the Guard Act would ensure that before sending our Guard members into combat, Congress must first declare war, as the Constitution requires. I'm here because I believe it's time that we as a community stand up and demand that our leaders honor this responsibility. Our children and our children's inheritance depends on it.
All right. Yeah, and that, just to go back a little bit, what can one of y'all tell us like a good explanation of exactly what Defend the Guard is and yeah, and the legislation that we're trying to get through?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, that was a beautiful explanation by Mark. You've learned well. So no, thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, essentially, so Defend the Guard is a bill that was actually created by, there's an organization called Bring Our Troops Home. It was founded by a gentleman named Dan McKnight. He's retired, I believe it's Marine Corps, Army vet, and part of the Idaho National Guard. And so one of the Bring Your Troops Home, or Bring Our Troops Home major projects is this bill, Defend the Guard. And what it does is, it's a state level legislation. And what it does is it ensures, just like Mark said, that the National Guard is not able to be sent overseas into active combat without a formal congressional declaration of war, which is, it's already in our Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. That's, Congress has to declare war first. So what this bill does is it really just returns us to the Constitution. And it's unique in several ways. So it actually does a number of things. Again, taking us back to what's constitutional. It protects our National Guard troops from being sent overseas into these endless wars with no clear outcome, no end date. There's really no clear path overall. They're just being sent for whatever, whenever. The government basically has a blank check to do whatever they want. And like Mark stated, the National Guard has a dual role, but it's primarily a state militia. So as we protect the National Guard troops from being sent overseas into these endless wars, we're also protecting Georgians because they are supposed to be here first and foremost to protect us. Just like he said, what we're seeing with Tennessee, but even here in Georgia and in North Carolina, you have these National Guard troops who've been sent overseas to these combat zones when they're needed here, first and foremost. And you hear from different people with the boots on the ground that FEMA is nowhere to be found, National Guard's nowhere to be found. And we know there are some National Guard troops over there doing amazing work, but they're not all here where they should be. And so that's what this bill does. It protects us first and foremost, keeping those troops here to do domestic missions. But it does also return accountability and transparency to Congress. If you're willing to put our sons and daughters' lives at risk, you better be willing to put your name on the dotted line and declare war as they should. It's their responsibility. So this bill does a lot of different things all in one, and we are really confident we're going to get some support for this in the next session.
Heck yeah. You both have mentioned declaring war, and for people out there who don't know, America hasn't declared an actual war since World War II. So Mark, being in the military, what is it that gives us permission to send troops abroad in these quote unquote wars?
So what they've used is the AUMF, authorized use of military force. And that went in under 9/11. And it was kind of a broad statement that just, hey, we're fighting terrorism overseas. And they advocated their duty as Congress to declare war. And they said that the President of the United States as Commander in Chief can now dictate where they go and how they go. So the AUMF is kind of what they're using right now to get around that. And it got renewed maybe last year or the year before, but it's still a broad general authorization. And in the Constitution, it says that only Congress can declare war, and they are just abdicating their responsibility to the president, which nowhere in the Constitution says that they're allowed to do that.
Gotcha. So who, do they renew the AUMF? Is that's them saying, okay, the president can now just go do their own thing? Are they the ones who renew that legislation?
That legislation goes through Congress.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, the mere fact that we have had troops overseas for the past 70 years without declaring war on any of these countries or any of these, declaring war on an idea seems like a terrible way to go about committing violence upon people. You mentioned Georgia and Tennessee. Are there any other like notable states within the country that have suffered because their guard was overseas that you know of?
Yeah, we're seeing that in North Carolina now too, but you can even go back to Hurricane Katrina and see the devastation. You know, the National Guard had been deployed during Hurricane Katrina and were not able to be present the way they should have been. So, I mean, you can go back to pretty much any natural disaster over the last several decades, and you can find the National Guard overseas in some combat zone without a declaration of war, and people suffer. People at home are suffering, and because their state militia is being misused somewhere else and not be able to fulfill their role here. You know, American citizens are amazing. We're seeing that with Hurricane Helene. We're stepping up. We have amazing people from all over the country who are showing up in these other states. And we're going to continue to see that. You know, requesting that our National Guard is here to help us is not going to take away from that. But we know there's still a significant need. And when the National Guard, when this is really their primary role, it's incredibly sad that they're not here to do that. So, I mean, yeah, pretty much any natural disaster, you can look and see that we have been shorthanded significantly.
Yeah, you'd think that with the name of National Guard, they wouldn't really ever leave the United States. Just
well, that's just being logical, Jake.
Too much logic. Let's talk about the legislation process and how basically it starts with an idea and then ends with hopefully being like codified into law. So what's that process been like so far, and what are we trying to do from here on out?
Marc, you want me to take it, or you want me?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Gretchen, on that one.
Well, just really briefly, because in all honesty, like, I'm very new to all this. I've never in my life until the last, couple of years, traced a bill from, the very beginning, from an idea all the way through until it's finally passed. And the more I learn, the more I'm like, wow, this is so convoluted. And so there's so many layers to this, but just really straightforward. So this bill was introduced last session. We have a senator here in Georgia, Senator Colton Moore, who introduced this last session in his committee. It made it through 2 committees, but it was not placed on the calendar for them to actually vote on the floor for an actual vote to go forward. And so it essentially died there. And so he is willing to reintroduce it this session, but it will basically start over. So that is where getting as much support as possible is going to be really important, because we want, when it comes time for these committees to vote on it, we're going to be calling with everyone on the committee, hey, your constituents want this. Hey, this particular VFW wants this. Hey, these veteran-owned businesses want this. Are you going to vote for this? Are you going to show your support for the people who voted you in office? So it's, there's a whole on process. It has to go through multiple committees. It has to go through, the Senate, has to go through the House. Here in Georgia, we have it in the Senate. There's been 3 states, I believe, I think it's Arizona, Idaho, and New Hampshire, where it's made it through at least one of the 2, either the Senate or the House. I think Arizona and Idaho, it's made it through the Senate. In New Hampshire, it's made it and passed through the House. But that's, so far it's just those 3, and in no states has it passed through both chambers. So we would love to be the first in Georgia. We would love to set that precedent. So we're just, we're just trying to get as much support as we can to show that this needs to pass.
Yeah, setting that precedent is a huge landmark, because that it tends to cause other states to consider doing the exact same thing. And you've seen that with many laws in the past, where one state will do it, and then in the next 10 years, every state has that law passed. So that would be a huge deal. And what you said, he has to submit it again this session. You said it has to go through multiple committees before it even gets to the floor. Right. Do you know what those committees are?
So this session, I'm not sure actually which committees. I don't know if he'll reintroduce it in the same committee, and I'm not sure if he's actually serving on the same committees as last session. That's something that we'll probably chat about here in the next couple of months before the legislative session starts in January. And Marc, if you know more on that, I'll definitely chime in. But yeah, it made it through the first committee last session through a pretty significant majority. So we do know that there's support, and there's bipartisan support there too. There's support from both sides of the aisle. Obviously, the LP here supports it, but without having a representation in the Georgia Congress, we really just have support from the Republicans and the Democrats here in Georgia. But boots on the ground, our small team in Georgia, as we do reach out for support, we have all kinds of different people supporting this bill. We have everyone from, we've talked to GOP groups, we've talked to some Democratic groups, the LP obviously supports it, but we even had the ACLU last legislative session showing up during the hearing to show support. So there's a wide variety of people that get behind this who are, supportive of our military. You don't have to be anti-military to know that we shouldn't be sending our troops into endless war. So you can be pro-military, you can be for our National Guard, for all of our troops, and still say this is wrong. This is wrong to take advantage of our National Guard and send them, overseas. And so needless to say, we have a lot of support. We just have to show our state senators and representatives that it's there.
Interesting. I love it when a whole bunch of different people come together behind one issue, like the whole Rage Against the War Machine rallies that happen in DC every year now. The LP got together with the Communist Party with a few other people that we have diametrically opposed points of view in 99% of things, but we can agree. Don't send troops into meaningless wars that we have no reason to be involved in.
Yeah, we can be so powerful. When we come together on issues this way, on these issue coalitions, we can be incredibly powerful. And that means so much more than just sticking, straight with your party on every single issue. Collaboration is everything. So we're looking to collaborate and with as many different, groups as possible. So
heck yeah. Marc, when this gets passed, because it's going to get passed, it's just a matter of time. So when this thing gets passed, what would then what would that look like as far as the National Guard is concerned from like that point forward?
I don't really think there'd be much of a change in reality with the National Guard because of our mission. We're dual supporting, so we'll still continue our mission here. We can still deploy to places like Germany and Italy and help our allies around the world. All this does is just combat missions. So that would just draw back us going to combat. Active duty would have to step up and fill that role, or the reserves, and we would carry on as normal. And it would give the state more resources here at home at the same time. And it would help us more prepare for an actual war. So if something does kick off, if we do need to go and Congress declares war, you have the National Guard here, ready, primed to go. We have a 72-hour alert. So in 72 hours, we can be anywhere in the world. So if we're here at home and we're prepped, anything that happens that we need to go to, we can. But if we're deployed all over the world and stretched thin, then we can't complete that mission.
Interesting. I like that not much would change. It would just be more serving what the original purpose of the organization would be, which is, exactly what it's supposed to do. So does this all, the legislation side of things, does it all have to go through in one session? Like once that session ends, you have to restart the whole dadgum process again?
Yes, unfortunately. It can't be easy, Jake. You know this with government.
Just every time I learn just a little new tidbit, I just always think to myself, how can anybody believe in the government? I just don't get it. Because go ahead.
I would say we don't necessarily believe in the government. We do believe in the people who will help us champion this. There are good people that are willing to, step up and support these bills and push them through and show that they're listening to their constituents. So maybe you won't believe in government as a whole, but we do believe that there are people there that are going to partner with us and will see the value in this, and not just value, but the importance of this. We've lost 5 National Guard service members here in Georgia alone just this year. And I remember when we lost the first 3, and it was so tragic. And I remember hearing from so many people, wait, we have National Guard in Jordan? What are we doing in Jordan? And that's so scary. People don't, and that's the whole point, is we have to have transparency. People don't know where we are, what we're doing. And that's really scary. That's so important that we not just request Congress to be transparent, but we demand that they are. So yeah, it is sad that we have to start over every year and we have to put so much effort into just say, hey, remember that Constitution that we are supposed to go by? let's pass a bill just to get back to that. But unfortunately, that's what it takes, but we're willing to do it. We're going to do everything we can to make that happen.
How many folks, Georgia citizens, are in the National Guard? Do y'all know?
Ooh, you know what?
That's a good question.
That's a figure I don't know. That's a good one. We should find out.
All right, maybe I'll just pop it up on screen here.
So I have a prime example of something that happened with us during some hurricanes that hit Puerto Rico really bad 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, please.
These hurricanes came in and just destroyed Puerto Rico. There were 2 of them that came through, and the Puerto Rico Guard had to evacuate, so they couldn't do anything. And we actually set up here in Savannah to help. Like day one, we had generators, food, water, everything ready to go. And we had a hub and spoke mission, we called it, where we sent more supplies to Puerto Rico than we did in the Berlin airlift. But at that same time, we were gearing up to deploy overseas. So we had half of our guys down for that, and we could not sustain that mission. We actually had to call in Guard troops from other states to come in. We had like 6 or 7 different states send in planes to rotate in and out supplies. We had a plane taking off every hour going down to Puerto Rico and helping out. So this is something that has happened, and it will happen again. So.
Yeah. I mean, we are in a hurricane path, like every single hurricane season. Like there's going to be natural disasters that happen in our state, and it would be wonderful if the people who were supposed to be the ones helping during those times of crisis were actually here. That would be ideal. How can people get involved in this campaign?
Yeah, so a number of ways. So first and foremost, we have a very small team. Marc and myself, we have a couple of other gentlemen, just a very small team here in Georgia who are working on outreach, essentially. Everyone from various VFW posts and American Legion posts, veteran-owned businesses, to other groups, like I mentioned before, the GOP, Democratic Committee, ACLU, all these other organizations. But really what we need, as our colleague Kurt calls them, is our evangelists. We need other people who see the value in this and are willing to spread the word. So for one, you can go to our website, defendtheguard.us. You can go on there and sign our petition. It's really about spreading the word, though. So if you know any, if you have veterans in your family, or you're associated with a veterans group, or maybe a VFW post, or Disabled American Veteran post, or what have you, speaking with them about your local posts, speaking with them about the Defend the Guard bill, and just say, hey, this is coming up next session. Let's call our congressmen, let's call our senators, let's call the people on these committees and tell them you want to support. People really underestimate the value of just a quick phone call to your congressman. That matters so much. They take those calls. If they don't answer those calls, they have staffers who take them. They take notes. They will record that you've called. And if you call and you get 5 of your friends to call and 5 of them call, that matters. That has a significant impact. Phone calls are huge. So sign the petition, call your congressman. We're always looking for more help on our team. There's only so much we can do across the whole state, so you can always get in touch with us through the LP. But it's really about raising awareness and just reaching out to your congressman and telling them, please support this. I want you, protect us, like take care of your citizens, keep your National Guard stateside, allow them to be utilized the way they were intended, and stop allowing the federal government to use and abuse them. Don't give them this blank check that they have right now. So that's how I would suggest. Marc, if I'm missing something, let me know.
No, I think you hit most of the points perfectly. If you believe in what, go ahead, Jay.
No, go ahead, Marc. Go ahead, please.
If you believe in what the Defend the Guard Act stands for, protecting our service members and upholding the Constitution, then reach out to your local representatives, like Gretchen said. Call them, write them an email, meet them at the local county fair or the local parade. Mm-hmm. These are state senators, state congressmen. You can get a hold of these people. Tell them why you support the legislation and why it matters to you, your family, your community. It's that direct communication from citizens that really affects and really matters. For more information, again, you can go to defendtheguard.us, sign the petition there, like Gretchen said. There you'll find resources to help you connect with legislators, learn more about the act, and join the movement. You can also follow groups like Bring Our Troops Home, who help push for across the country all this legislation. And if you're able, get involved locally, whether it's volunteering, attending events, or just spreading the word. Every bit of support moves us closer to seeing this become a law.
Heck yeah. And yeah, y'all are totally right. Like, reaching out to state congressmen and state senators is so easy. Because I made phone calls during the last session for the Defend the Guard, and I made a fool of myself on the first one. I sounded like a complete idiot. So then I made sure to do a little bit more research and make sure I had everything down perfectly. But he answered the phone himself. Like, it wasn't like you have to go through this whole process of trying to find these people. Like, they will answer the phone a lot of the time, and you'll get to talk directly to them, which is something you can't do, like with like a U.S. senator or U.S. congressman. And that's very powerful. Like, I think Michael Malice said it on Part of the Problem today or yesterday. If you somebody's far more likely to do, like, I think 75% more likely to take your thoughts into consideration if they shake your hand or talk to you directly. And that's something huge. And if you can get multiple people doing that over a long period of time, I think that would definitely sway it enough to get more people backing the legislation. So definitely do that. It's so easy to do, and it does a lot.
Right. And a lot of people don't like making phone calls. I don't even like making phone calls. It's not my favorite thing to do. And I grew up the first half of my life talking on the phone all the time. Back when it was cool, because I'm old and we used to do that. But now, but like my adult life, I don't love talking on the phone, but it doesn't take long at all. In 5 minutes, you can pretty much call everyone on a committee and say, hey, back this bill. And it is good to have some information, but you don't have to know. I made that mistake the first time. I waited because I was like, I don't know everything. I don't know how a bill goes through all the different stages. I have to have all this knowledge, and you really don't. You can literally know nothing and just call your representative and say, you know what? I support this. You should vote for it, and hang up. You don't have to do that, but just know that you don't have to have it all figured out. Just call and, let them record that you called, and let them know that you support this and you want them to support it. It's so easy.
Absolutely. You may not know the answer to this question. If you don't, no worries. When this episode comes out, the following day is election day. Are there any candidates in the state of Georgia? If, let's say, you're a single issue voter and your single issue is Defend the Guard, are there any candidates within Georgia that y'all know of that people should consider voting for on that basis alone?
So Chase Oliver, absolutely. Chase Oliver is a huge advocate for Defend the Guard. So I would say he supports it. He's the only one that I know of here in Georgia specifically. So I'm not sure if you know of any other ones, Mark, let me know, but I don't know of any other ones at this point.
Well, yeah, the presidential race really doesn't matter. And sorry if I lost my mic, if the sound's a little off. But yeah, the presidential race, this is a state level legislation. So federal doesn't really matter. So, of course, support Colton Moore. He's the sponsor on that right now. And any of the co-sponsors that we get throughout the year will definitely push that forward so that we can support them.
Awesome. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much. I've been following, like I said, I did some phone stuff for y'all last year, made a fool of myself, but everything was okay. I don't like, I'm the same with you, Gretchen. I grew up talking on the phone with all my friends, and now I hate doing it. I don't know what changed over the years, but I can't stand making cold calls more than anything. Well, yeah, just one more time before we go, tell people where to find y'all and how to support.
Yeah, so you can go to defendtheguard.us is where you can find more information about the bill. You can find more information about the organization, Bring Our Troops Home. You can sign the petition there. And there's also handouts and different articles and things that you can read just to get more informed. Contact info for our state sponsor, and all kinds of good stuff on there.
Awesome. All right, y'all. That'll do it for this week. Y'all have an awesome week. Get out there, vote if you want to. Don't vote if you don't want to. I couldn't care less what you do. Just do what you want. Y'all have a good week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jay.